Okay, so Yachimo, greetings. Yet I say we thank you for tuning in once again. For those who are unaware, I'm Odwirafo Kwesi Radnehmpata Akan, Odwirafo of Nkwamua and Marukati, familiar Akwamu Nation in North America within Ojirama, the purified nation, Afuraitkait people in the Western Hemisphere. Also the founder of Hoodoo Jase Dine, the Hearth Shrine of Akan ancestral religion in North America, the Hoodoo tradition. So tonight's broadcast, just wanted to touch on some information that we brought up not only last night in last night's live stream, but in a couple of other live streams that we touched on. Wanted to bring this up because once a number of years ago, we did a Blog Talk radio broadcast where we went into some detail about a certain aspect of this notion of therapy, the original term, Cherepit, and so forth. But we wanted to give some more context about that. So what it's talking about is the terms from ancient Kamit and Kamit, our ancestral language of ancient Nubian Egypt and so forth, is Cherep on the masculine side, Cherepit on the feminine side. Cherepit is the etymological origin, linguistic or etymological origin of the term therapy, but it comes from our ancestral language and culture. So, and it's representative of a class of priest or priestess. Let's look at this. So we have a traditional priest on the left here and a traditional priestess on the right. This is the spelling of the term Cherep and Cherepit in the Medutan Toro, the language of ancient Kemet and so forth. So the original priests and priestesses, different classes of priests and priestess in ancient Kamit and Kemet, and that carries over into, traditional and contemporary Afuraka, Afuraitkait, Africa, the traditional priesthoods and priestesshoods that exist today, carried on from tens of thousands of years ago, and into North America in the Hoodoo tradition, for example, the Hoodoo man or Hoodoo woman, the root worker, root doctor, and so forth. That's the Akan tradition, the Voodoo man or Voodoo woman, which is the Ewe tradition, the Juju man, Juju woman in North America, the Yoruba tradition, and so forth. So we maintain these priesthoods and priestesshoods in our traditional ancestral religious practices. We are the original therapists, which is Cherepit, and so forth. When we're talking about mental health or behavioral health or, mental balance, emotional balance, spiritual balance, originally that is the domain, and still in traditional and real authentic culture, that's the domain of the priests and priestesses, who are healers and healeresses, not only for physical ailments, but also spiritual disalignment. So let's look at some definitions. The etymological dictionaries, as you can see here. Typically, when you look at etymological dictionaries, even though it's changed recently over the past few years, typically they will go back to a Proto-Indo-European root at the earliest. They typically do not want to show that these terms you find in English and Greek and Latin and Sanskrit and so forth actually do not just go back to the Proto-Indo-European language family or phylum, but they go back to ancient Kamit and Kemet, Egypt and Nubia and so forth, because then it proves that we are the origin of these terms, the cosmology, the culture, and we have the original terms and the actual meanings. So they want to try to pretend like these terms and, even names of deities and so forth are rooted in white culture, but they are not. So most etymological dictionaries don't go back that far. We show the truth. Now, therapy, you'll see that it will say it's the science of medical treatment of disease, from modern Latin therapia, from the Greek therapia, curing, healing, service done to the sick, awaiting on a service from therapeun, to cure, treat medically, literally, attend, do service, take care of, and then of course, they'll say see therapeutic and pertaining to healing disease and so forth. So all of that. So where's the term actually come from? So what we're going to do is we're going to go to our hieroglyphic dictionary. So this is Budge's Hieroglyphic Dictionary. You can also get the Vigus Dictionary. You can download that online for free. You can download Budge's Dictionary for free. What we have done is, and many African-centered scholars, Afrocentric scholars, Afuraitkait scholars, have shown that, for example, we have published a document showing the identity of the Akan language with the language of ancient Kanit and Kamit. So we can take words from the Akan dictionary, the Twi language dictionary of the Akan people of Ghana and Ivory Coast, and show the exact same words with the same meanings that you find in the language of ancient Kanit and Kamit. So we can take a hieroglyphic dictionary and an Akan language dictionary and show the same terms. We've published documents on that. We're compiling a comparative dictionary as well, so we can prove through the living languages of Afuraka, Afuraitkait, Africa today, that these are the same words with the same meanings that we still use and speak to this day. So there are different classes of priests and priestesses in our ancestral religious cultures. That's across the board. Same thing in ancient Kanit and Kamit with different functions. So when you look at the term, we can show why the vocalization is Cherep. But when you look at the term here, this KH sound can be che, Cherep, Cherep. So when you look at the general term, to lead, to direct, to superintend, to rule, to lay under tribute, to be master, to excel, to be in front, to present, to offer, to give, to bring gifts. So it's leading or directing, guiding, and so forth. This is what the individual is dealing with. You'll even see this particular symbol here, which is a certain kind of scepter. This is the one who leads. A leader, a guide, and so forth. Because it has to do with someone who guides or leads, and you put your trust in this individual to lead you into a proper condition and so forth. The plural, cherepu, director, governor, overseer, leader, chief, master, president, one who is in charge, so to speak. Chiefs, foremen, bailiffs, wardens, superiors, overseer, and all of that. So Cherep can also be the chief of the crew, the chief huntsman, the chief of the cavalry, a number of different titles and so forth. But here's the key portion. A title of a priestess, director of the two thrones, a title of Tahuti, and Aferu. Tahuti is the high priest, the great divinity of divine wisdom and divination. Heru, when he becomes king, the king is the chief priest of the nation, just like the queen mother is the chief priestess of the nation. That's across the board in ancient Kanit and Kamit, as well as in Akan culture and Afuraitkait cultures across the board. The title of the high priest of Sais, which is really Saud, the title of the high priest of the female divinity, the Ntoro, the goddess Neat, and so forth. A title of a priest, another title of a priest. So you see all these different applications for Cherep being the title of a priest. And then the feminine aspect in ancient Kemet, the T, but the et is the suffix that denotes femininity. It feminizes the noun. So Cherep, masculine, Cherepet or Cherepit, feminine. A title of the chief priestess, Sinopolis, Hua, and so forth. And then you also have because they're the ones who, bring healing, leading, guiding, healing, and so forth, bringing tribute, bringing offerings. The reason why I was talking about bringing offerings, as you can see here, to offer, to give, to bring gifts. What is the association with the leader, the guide, the priest, the priestess, the healer, the healeress, also offering and giving and bringing gifts, because we give offerings to the abosom, the deities, offerings to the Samanfo, the ancestresses and ancestors, to facilitate the healing process. So even Cherepit, as a noun meaning offerings or tribute, that's the association there. So let me show you a couple of images so you can have a better understanding of that. So this is and priestess from ancient Kamit. It's Takushi. And you'll notice there are the sacred Medutun the sacred inscriptions upon her body and so forth. Typically, it's on the clothing of the priestess. This is a late period priestess. You see she has the traditional Nubitu or Nubian locks or twists as a hairstyle, same hairstyles that we wear today. But you'll also find that these sacred symbols, Medutun Toro, were also tattooed on the bodies of the priestesses. And you'll find the earliest evidence of tattoos anywhere in the world are ancient priestesses of Het Heru going back over 6,000 to 7,000 years ago in ancient Kamit and southern Kamit. That's the earliest evidence of tattoos on the human body are the priestesses of Het Heru in ancient Kamit. But this is one of the Cherepit. Now let's switch that over to a, all right. So you see this is the traditional priest, Cherep, one of the class of priests and priestesses. You have the Sim priest, the Ka-Him priest, the Sunu, which is also a physician and so forth, and Sunut. But you also have the Cherep, masculine, Cherepit, feminine and so forth. You'll see that he's wearing the cloth of the Ba, which is the term for leopard in ancient Kamit, also called Basa. And there's a sacred divinity called Basa, whose sacred animal totem is the Basa, which is the leopard. In Akan, or Sebo is the leopard. In ancient Kemet is Basa. And you see he's wearing the leopard print. In the Akan tradition and in Voodoo and so forth, they'll have the same connotation, but instead of wearing the leopard print, sometimes they'll simply use the white shedel or chalk to make circles all over the body of the person who's possessed with the spirits and so forth to show that's that leopard print. But that leopard animal totem carries the energy of the divinity that assists in the healing process and destroying, just like you have medicines that destroy cancerous cells and attack them and expel them from the body. You have that fiery energy of the leopard and the leopardess who attacks these discarnate spirits that will create disorder within the spirit body of the person, leading to mental illness, psychiatric disorders, and so forth, as well as, free radicals that cause cancerous, tumors and things like that. We can eradicate that as well. So you see him wearing the traditional leopard garment. You'll see that in certain classes of priesthood and so forth. Typically, the priest, as well as priestess, very often shaves the head and so forth. You'll notice when you're looking at your command, you very rarely see someone with a mustache or facial hair. You'll see the braided beard for certain ritual aspects, but you see the head shaved. And there's a ritual connotation for that. So this is one of these ancient priests. This is something we have touched on in our Hoodoo Cast podcast, but we also touched on this in our Hoodoo film. Show you a link to the film itself, but I also want to show you this specific document. And this is one of when we talked about the different classes of priesthood and priestesshood in the Hoodoo tradition in North America. So this is a different classes of priesthood and priestesshood, just so you can see it's a continuity of culture. This is in the Hoodoo tradition in North America, carried over from our Akan ancestresses and ancestors in Ghana and Ivory Coast. When we were forced into North America, we maintained the tradition, and also we maintained our priesthoods and priestesshoods as well. So let me expand this for you. So these are entries from the Akan dictionary, and you'll see it says Odwirafo, which is Hoodoo, physician or doctor. Ye means to work. Undu is the medicine from roots, trees, and plant life. So the undu, plural, or odu, singular, but Odwirafo is the root medicine. Undu, ye, to work. Fo means a group of people. So Odwirafo means the root worker. Then you have Odu Sini, singular, Odusini Fo, plural, native physician, they say medicine man, charmer, but this is from the Akan dictionary written in the 1800s. Undu means root, medicine, and so forth. The undu, the hoodoo, and sin, the stump or stalk of a tree and so forth. So the udun sini is the one who takes the roots and so forth from the stumps, stalks of the trees and the plants and makes the medicine. So the udun sini is the root doctor. The Odu Ye Ni or Odu Ye Fo is the root worker. Ye means to make, to do, or to work. So Odu Ye Fo is the root worker. Odu Sini Fo is the root doctor. Odu Tofo, Ta means to cast and also to poison. So that's the one who uses the Undu, the hoodoo, to poison and so forth. Then you have the Odu Mafo. Ma means to give. It also has to do with divination. So that's the diviner. So Odu Yefo, Odu Sinfo, Odu Tofo, Odu Mafo passed over into the Hoodoo tradition as the Hoodoo Yefo, Hoodoo Sinfo, Hoodoo Mafo, Hoodoo Tofo, and so forth, but different classes of Hoodoo priests and priestesses. So just like in ancient Kanedi Kemet, you have the Sim priest, the Kahim priest, the Keri head priest, the Cherep and Cherepit. You also have the Susuw and Sunuts and so forth, different classes of priest or priestess. Some focused specifically mainly on medicine, some focused on repelling discarnate spirits, some focused on healing the communal aspect at large and so forth. Different classes, just like you have neurosurgeons, you have heart surgeons, you have different classes of physicians, contemporary in the Western society. We had a similar thing. We had some people who were focused on, they would call them bone setters. Someone breaks a bone and so forth, they have that capacity to reset the bones in a proper way. So you would send someone to a specialist, a bone setter, for that kind of healing. But you had other people who were more focused on, medicines, making medicines from roots, trees, plant life, and so forth, healing ailments, purging toxins and so forth, shrinking tumors and cysts so they can pass out of the body, all these different kinds of things. So now let's get back to the title in ancient Kemet, because I want to show you this relationship in the Akan language to show this is a continuous process. So we saw the Cherep, Cherepi, to guide, to teach, to lead, and so forth, all of that. We're going to go to the Akan dictionary and to get some confirmation. And then we'll bring the two together. The term for a teacher or a guide in the Akan language is the same actual term. And that term is the Chere Fo. So we said Cherep, Cherepit. In the Akan language, we have the same term. And now the KY combination in the Akan language is the Ch sound. So we see the KY here. It's similar to the CH combination in English. And so you have Chere, to show forth, to produce, to exhibit, present, to view. And then when you look further, to show, point out to guide, to lead to. So when we talked about how Chere or Cherep means to guide, to lead, also to bring offerings and so forth, to gift. You have Chere, meaning to guide, to lead, to show and point to and so forth. To show, meaning to show you, to teach you, to say, let me show you this. I'm going to bring this into your awareness. Now, then you see Chere say, to show the reason, meaning sense, to explain, to interpret. And definition 4, to teach, instruct in Mechere no Nhomakain. I taught him to read and so forth, to advise, counsel, exhort, and so forth, to be in the direction of or have a situation toward in front to face, to look forward. So all of that is showing that the same term Cherep in ancient Kemet is the same term Chere in the Akan tradition with the same title. Now, it's not simply the verb to teach, to show, to guide, to lead, to instruct, but it's also the noun version is the title of a teacher or a guide. And that includes any kind of teacher, whether you're teaching just in general, or you're guiding someone spiritually in the capacity of an okomfo, a certain kind of priest or priestess, or abosumfo, and so forth. So let's look at that. So as we said before, the suffix fo in the Akan language denotes plurality. So for example, an Akan person is Akan ni, meaning to be, ni Akan, that's an Akan individual. Akan fo is the group of people, fo, who are Akan, so that's Akan people. Akwamu ni is an Akwamu person, individual. Akwamu fo is the Akwamu people. Ochere ni is an individual ni who teaches. Ochere fo is one of the group of people, fo, who instructs. So this is why we have Ochere fo, and that is the term for a teacher or instructor. But the root, of course, is Cherep. So that's the Cherep in Akan culture, the same individual executing the same function, the same descriptive title. We showed the term itself, to guide, to lead, to teach, and so forth. And that verb, to guide, to lead, to teach, is also applied as a title to the high priestess, as we said, of Susuw, the high priestess of Meat, and so forth, the high priest of certain areas and so forth, of certain divinities. So the function, to guide, to teach, and so forth in general, the mundane function, is also applied to the title of the functionary, in this context, the ritual functionary, the priest or the priestess. The same in the Akan language, the chere, to show, to teach, to instruct, to guide, is the mundane, definition, but it's also applied as a title of a class of individuals who engage in that process. The chere fo, one of the group of people fo who engage the chere process. I'm going to take you to the section in our documentary film, the Hoodoo film. There's a specific section where we deal with the notion of the priesthood and priestesshood and so forth. And I want you to see that. So our documentary film, Hoodoo, Akan Ancestral Religion in North America, you can watch that for free on our website, which is on this YouTube channel right here. If we're talking about Hoodoo, which is Akan Ancestral Religion, of course, we have to show that the characters in the Bible, Quran, Talmud, like Jesus, Yahweh, Allah, Muhammad, Buddha, Brahman, are all fictional characters who never existed. So in the beginning of the film, we go into detail about that. I have published 31 books. And one of the books is the Kuku Tuntun, the Ancestral Jurisdiction. And we go into detail in that book showing, for example, that the deity here, Su, was corrupted into Yensu and Yeshua, Jesus and Jesus and so forth. Su and Merit, the goddess Aset, who's also called Merit, was corrupted into Mary. So Su and Merit became Jesus and Mary and Jesus and Mary and so forth, fictional characters. The river divinity Mu Hapmet, the waters Mu of Hapmet, the Northern Nile, the spiritual force operating through the Northern Nile, was corrupted from Muhammad into Muhammad and so forth. So we go into detail about that in the film. We also show that the divinity Ptah was corrupted into the fictional character Buddha. The male divinity of the moon, Yah or Yahweh, was corrupted into Yahweh. There's also a female divinity of the moon, Yahweh, which of course they cast to the side. So we start off talking about that, then we get into some show these images from ancient Kamit when we were visiting ancient Khanid, Nubia, and Kamit, getting, firsthand, primary sources so we can show our people what's actually taking place. But then we started getting into the ritual practices in the Hoodoo tradition.
Who have migrated or were forced to migrate outside of the continent of.
So we were talking about some of the ritual practices we engage in at the ocean and so forth. But then we get into
as we have shown
the classes of priesthood and priestesshood.
Akan people see what they call the tradition.
Now here we were showing the connection between the Akan tradition in North America and the Akan tradition in South America. They call it Winti in South America. We call it Voodoo in North America.
Spirits, the atmospheric Winti spirits, and more.
But then we get into this notion of the Gofa doctor with the Gofa dust. Gofa doctor in Hoodoo is the Komfoa doctor, Komfo, the priest, as well as priestess in the Akan tradition. So Gofa comes from Komfoa. So we still have the priesthood or priestesshood. The Komfoa is a Cherep, a guide, a lead, or teacher, the one who brings offerings and so forth. First, we show that Komfo or Komfoa came to be pronounced Gofua in the Voodoo tradition. So we show the traditional Akan priest is one of these Cherep or Cherepit priests or priestesses and so forth, dancing around in a circle, and then we show that we continued that ring shout process in the Hoodoo tradition.
Or komu is the root of the term. In the Akan language, kom, when the spirit comes, kom to go within. Kom colors or powders.
So this is one of those
charcoal powder, kaolin powder,
traditional Cherep or Cherepit in North America, Mississippi, Gofa or Komfoa, doctor and so forth, the healer. And then we get into the notion of the Adanko and Adankowa and Akan tradition, the rabbit's foot and so forth. Healing talisman in Akan tradition, the Adanko, the hair, and Adankowa, the female hair, are root workers in the Akan tradition. They give the din 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 undu, the hard din 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 undu medicine. So din 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 undu in the Akan tradition literally means the din din means the hard, and the undu is the medicine, the hoodoo. So just like we say that the hare or the rabbit in North America, the rabbit's foot is that hoodoo, carries that hoodoo medicine and so forth. In Akan tradition, Adanko, the hare, Adankowa, the female hare, are considered root workers and so forth, and they heal through ritual medicine through undu. That comes from the same divinities in ancient Kamit. And let's go back real quick so you can see that image once again.
In North America, unbroken.
When you see the headdress on the goddess, you see that hair on the standard above her head and so forth. That's Unut, the hair goddess and so forth, will be the rabbit goddess in North America. And there's the masculine hair god as well. The hair is the sacred totem. That male and female divinity who has the hair as the sacred totem was passed over into the Akan tradition as Adanko and Adankowa, and into North America in the Hoodoo tradition as those Cherep, the Komfoa, who carried the rabbit's foot as a sacred Hoodoo ritual healing talisman. When you look at the term therapy, and if we look at the term, even if we go back to, let's go back to the term therapist. And it turns out that there's a difference between, of course, the way we approach spiritual alignment, realignment, culture, and everything else, and the whites and their offspring. Now, if you look at the term, naturally in their language, of course, it's going to show up because this is the way they operate. Look at the term therapist. And we did a broadcast on this a while back. If you look at the term therapist, it's actually the rapist. So when you go to a psychologist or psychiatrist in traditional Western medicine and so forth, they're going to give you a pseudo philosophy, not rooted in reality, not rooted in who we are, our spiritual anatomy. They're going to give you a pseudo philosophy, whether it's dealing with Jung or Skinner or, you know, Maslow or Freud or Rogers, or these different Eurocentric, nonsensical theories coming from white so-called psychologists. They'll give you pseudo philosophy, a pseudo set of ideals. And if you don't align with that and your behavior is still out of alignment or self-destructive, then they're going to put you on psychotropic medication, which typically creates other problems within your system. It may make your mood, it may, reduce, some extra sensational behavior, but it's also attacking your system. So either way, that you're either getting a pseudo philosophy that you're trying to incorporate, or you're getting psychotropic medications that are actually attacking, especially us melanin dominant people. So the therapist is the rapist. They're forcing themselves on you. They're forcing a pseudo white philosophy on you. They're forcing psychotropic medications that are deleterious to our physical as well as our spiritual anatomy. So that's the difference between white psychology and ancestral religion. We have the Cherep and the Cherepit, the priest or priestess, which seeks to align our thoughts, intentions, and actions with divine order. And if there is some disalignment from that, we have the capacity to get back in alignment. Now, let's look at that in the context of divination. And we're going to go to our divination page on our website. One of the roles of the traditional Cherep, Cherepit is divination, which in the Akan language is Adibisa. This is our divination page. And even before, so we're going to talk about divination quickly, but before we get into that, I want to show you one other piece. So you see that we have our Hoodoo film. You can watch it for free. But the first film that I produced is Amarokafo Adibisa, African American Ancestral Divination.
Into the world that child.
In this film, there are 5 of us in the film. Rekit Kadarania Yadebehet, dealing with the Fang tradition, Ras Seki Kemetic Reiki, but how her Fang ancestresses and ancestors forced into North America continued the Fang tradition in the form of the Ngengang tradition, which is also pronounced Ngengang or Ngengang and so forth. In the film, Rekit talks about her preservation of divinatory practices. Each one of the individuals in the film talk about their preservation of divinatory practices. So this is Rekit Kajara Nia Nebehet. She talks about how certain forms of divination were preserved in her blood circles, and she continues to perform divination, healing on people, and so forth. She's based in Georgia now, originally from Virginia. Later in the film, we have Voodoo Queen Kalinda Laveau out of New Orleans, and she talks about how a specific form of divination was preserved in her blood circle that she continues to practice today in the Voodoo tradition, which is Ewe ancestral religion in North America. Another guide, a priestess, and so forth. So we were in New Orleans filming that segment. Then we went to Florida for Wabet Sechat Tut Ankwajet. She is practicing the Wanga tradition in North America. When people say throwing the Wanga and so forth, that was preserved from her Ovambo ancestresses and ancestors who were forced into North America, enslaved and so forth in the regions of North Carolina. And Ovambo practices the Wanga tradition. The term Wanga comes from the Ovambo language. So when you hear in the South someone says we're throwing the Wanga, and it's similar to Voodoo in North America and so forth, and Hoodoo and Juju and so forth. But she practiced the Wanga tradition, and she talks about a specific form of palm leaf divination that was preserved in her tradition amongst, the Gullah people. And part of that Gullah constellation is the Ovambo ethnic group. She talks about that form of divination that was preserved by her people, and she still uses today.
Since I was a little girl, probably at about 13 is the first time I remember that my spirit was from Kamit.
And then we have
So I always had an interest.
Mama Mawusi Al Shakir in Cincinnati. We went to Cincinnati to connect with Mama Mawusi. She practices the Juju tradition, which is the Yoruba tradition in North America, preserved as a Juju, and the specific form of divination that she's preserved in her blood circle. She deals with that.
I'm being educated
And in the final segment, I'm talking about the Hoodoo tradition, of course, which is Akan ancestral religion, and the specific form of divination, one of the major form of divination that we use in the Hoodoo tradition, specifically within the Nkwamua Nation, North America, dealing with cockle shells, so-called seashells, and so forth. I talk about how I received that specific system with the specific shells from the Abosom, as well as the Nsamanfo, and through the working of the Hoodoo tradition and so forth. So I detail how it was passed on through our people, how we preserved it, and how I came to be practicing and utilizing the cockle shells for cockle shell divination, casting the shells in the water to do readings for people and so forth. So I talk about that in the, in the film. So, but let's go back real quick. And on this page, we're talking about that form of cockle shell or, seashell, adebisa, or divination. So when you're looking at a Cherep or Cherepit, they're the guide, the leader, the instructor, the one who brings the ritual offerings to the divinities and ancestral spirits. So there's a ritual invocation, a realignment of the individual and so forth. So what is the Cherep or Cherepit doing? What is the difference between a therapist in Western psychology and a Cherep or Cherepit in our ancestral religious practices? And every Afuraitkait group, African group, has their own name for this class of priest or priestess. In the Yoruba tradition, they have different classes like the Olorisha, Babalorisha, Iyalorisha. They also have the Babalawos and so forth. In Voodoo, they have the Mamisis. They also have the Voodoo queens. They also have, the Bokono and so forth. Different classes of priests and priestess. We talked about the different classes in Akan, Abosomfo, Okomfo, Osofo, different classes of priest or priestess. Every group has their own name in their language for this class, but the function is the same. Now, so we say divination or spiritual consultation is an integral component of all expressions of Nanasom, which is a term we use for Afuraitkait, or African ancestral religion, wherever our people are found in the world. This includes our people, Afurakanu, Afuraitkait Africans, in North, Central, and South America, and the Caribbean today, who are descendants of those who were forced into the Western Hemisphere during the Susuw, the Great Perversity, the enslavement era. So, to give a definition of what divination is and how that's connected to healing in the context of a priest or a priestess and so forth, in the Akan language, the term bisa is a verb meaning to inquire, to consult, while abisa is a noun meaning inquiry. The phrase kobisa means to go, ko, ask, inquire, consult, bisa. So when you say mere kobisa, I am going to consult, mere kobisa, I'm going to consult, that means someone's going to consult ritually the Abosom, the deities, and the Nananom and Samanfo, the spiritually cultivated class of ancestresses and ancestors. The term ade, or adie, means thing, object, entity. So adebisa, therefore, means things asked, inquired, or consulted about. Adebisa is an Akan term for spiritual consultation or divination, and so forth. So, but here's the critical definition. And this is the difference between a therapist and a Cherep or Cherepit in truth. through Adebisa or divination, one learns from the abosom, the spirit forces that animate all of creation, creation, and the Nananom Nsamanfo, our spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors. We learn the nature of past, present, and potential future circumstances and events in relation to our thoughts, intentions, and actions as measured against the standard of Nyamewa, Nyame, and Sheshe, which means the supreme being's order, divine order. So again, when you engage in the divinatory process, when you cast shells or you pour libation or whatever form you use to consult with the forces in nature and the ancestresses and ancestors who are spiritually cultivated, you learn from them the nature of past, present, and potential future circumstances and events in relation to our thoughts, intentions, and actions as measured against the standard of divine order. Divination, Adebisa, operationalizes ancestral religion, which is properly defined as the ritual incorporation of divine law, the ritual restoration of divine balance. So when we talk about ancestral religion, it is the ritual incorporation of divine law and the ritual restoration of divine balance. That means through the ritual process, we incorporate those things, objects, deeds, and entities we need to incorporate in order to align our thoughts, intentions, and actions with divine order. And through ritual, we reject those things, objects, deeds, and entities we need to reject in order to restore balance to our thoughts, intentions, and actions, and thus realign ourselves with divine order. So the ritual incorporation of divine law and the ritual restoration of divine balance, these are the expansive and contractive poles of ancestral religion for our people, no matter where we exist in the world. Now, Adebisa or divination is not only about seeking answers to overcome obstacles or exigencies, which is urgent, requirements. So it's key. So we do, go get readings to learn about what's going on. If there's a problem, whether it's physical, spiritual, communal, social, and so forth, what do we need to do to get back in balance? So we delve into divine order and so forth, see where the disalignment is, and bring the remedy, whether it's medicine, whether it's ritual practice, whether it's a combination thereof. So that's one aspect of divination. The other aspect of divination, to cast these shells or pour libation or whatever means you use to consult with the spirit realm, is not only about seeking answers to overcome obstacles or exigencies. We use Adebisa or divination to learn. Just as one can sit down and open up a book or log on to the internet to learn facts about various subjects to study, so do we use Adebisa to learn about, research, and study any subject imaginable. The Abosom and Nananom and Samanfo deity and spiritually cultivated ancestral spirits, in concert with your divine consciousness, will inform, direct, and position you to come in contact with individuals and information concerning the subject you queried about for confirmation and further study. So we say oracular divination systems of Afuraka, Afuraitkait, Africa are the original books that we open and continue to open in order to avail ourselves of the knowledge of all things in the physical world and the spirit realm. So we're learning about the nature of plant life, animal life, mineral life, the planets, sun, moon, stars, which deals with, geology, astronomy, biology, botany, every aspect of existence. We learn about that through the divinatory process, the nature of the inner workings of all of creation and so forth. And then we engage creation so we can verify these things, what some people will call scientific, but we learn about it spiritually, and then we prove it tangibly, physically by engaging creation. And then we preserve that knowledge. And this is how we build a body of knowledge for our community. This is how we build civilizations. This is how we were able to establish civilization, learn about medicine, the nature of the properties of plant life, animal life, mineral life, and incorporate that as part of our, corpus of knowledge and our traditions and so forth. And this is why the Europeans and Asians had to come to ancient Afuraka, Afuraitkait, and learn about these things from our people. Now let me go back up right quick. So that is the key difference between, what the whites and offspring teach with regard to spirituality, or, in comparison to, psychology and so forth. Now, let me give you one quote from one of our books that's important. And it's the Okra Complex book. And again, we've published 31 books to date. You can download these books for free from our website. And this is one of them, dealing with the nature of the soul, the divine consciousness, and something important with regard to the nature of mental health, which is important. So the name of the book is the Okra Complex. The term Okra, masculine, Okra, feminine, is the term for soul, the divine consciousness, the divinity in the head region in the Akan language. So the spiritual force in the head, like the spirit's brain, is called the Ka in Kemet, the Kra in Akan. So we talk about the nature of the soul, the divine consciousness. And we also show that the same term in ancient Kemet, the Ka, becomes Kra in Akan. It is the Odwirafo in the Yoruba tradition, the divinity in the head. It's the Selido in the Voodoo tradition, the deity in the head, and so forth. So we talk about that, and go into detail about the nature of the soul as a divinity that governs the head of the Afuraitkait or African individual. But the key point that we want to point out here, and this is near the end of the book, and it's important with regard to mental health and what is considered mental health. Now, there's this notion, when we talk about mental health, we're talking about the nature of the Susuw, the spirit body, and so forth. The Adwini, the mind, is part of that. So when someone, for us, and in truth, if you're out of alignment with the divinity that governs your head, that force that always pulls you towards thoughts, intentions, and actions that are in harmony with divine order, and the reason why you have a force in your head, and this is for Black people exclusively, Asians, Europeans, Arabs, white Hispanics, and so forth, white pseudo-Native Americans do not have a divinity that governs the head. Only Black people have that. A male divinity if you're male, a female divinity if you're female. So that's the spirit that governs the head. Within that force in your head region is your divine function in creation. You came into the world under the governance of a specific divinity to carry that energy into the community. So if you're a child of a fire divinity, you'll bring that fiery energy into the community. If you're a child of a water divinity, you bring that cool, watery energy into the community. If you're a child of an earth divinity, you'll bring that energy into the community. So, wired within the spiritual head, just like your brain has the blueprint of everything that should take place in the physical body, your spirit's brain, your Kra, the Krawa, the deity that governs the head, has the spiritual blueprint of how you should operate, how your spirit should operate in the world. If you become disaligned from that force in the head region, then that creates a disordered, outlook, disjointed and dysfunctional behavior, and so forth. So that is a manifestation of mental illness. And there, of course, are extremes of mental illness, just like you can have physical illness. You can have a minor physical illness, a common cold, or you can have bronchitis. You can have something more extreme. You can have a slight deviation from alignment with the divinity in the head, and it creates some discomfort in life. Or you can have a wide, disalignment, a major, fracture, and so forth, where you're disaligned and creates a great deal of disorder, which creates different forms of what would be called psychosis. So we address an aspect of that here in this segment of the book, and I just want to read that and let you see it as well, so you can see the differences in our culture with regards to the whites and their offspring. So it says, when we engage in disorder, we make ourselves repulsive To Nyame wa Nyame, the great mother and father, supreme being, the Abosom, the forces of nature. Nana Noman Samaf, our spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors, and our Akra, the soul, the divine consciousness. So when you dwell in disorder, you become repulsive. No different than two magnets on a table. If the like polarities are facing, they will repel each other without touching. If you get out of alignment with order, you become repulsive to that which is in harmony with order. So you become repulsive in that context to the supreme being, the forces in nature who regulate order and creation. Now you're going against order, just like cancer cells going against the natural order of the body. They become repulsive to the healthy cells. So when you engage in disorder, you make yourself repulsive. If we continue to dwell in disorder, the okra is repelled, similar to the, as we said, the repulsion of two magnets being placed together on a table with the same polarities facing. Until you reverse the polarities, the magnets will automatically repel. Until we reject disorder and realign with order, divine order, the divinity in your head region, which is rooted in divine order, is going to be repulsed and repelled until you get back in harmony with divine order. In this condition, we can manifest temporary, what is called in Akan culture, odaim, which means madness or psychosis. Indeed, psychosis is properly defined fundamentally as disalignment from the okra, the soul, the divine consciousness. So that's a key distinction. And that's true across the board. In Akan, we say disalignment from the okra, the divinity governing the head. In Yoruba, they would say disalignment from the ori inu, the Yoruba term for the divinity in the head. In Voodoo, they would say disalignment from the Selido, the divinity governing the head. In the Igbo tradition, they would say disalignment from the chi, which is their term for the spirit that governs the head, the divinity in the head. If you disalign from that spiritually, then you create disorder in your life. If you perpetuate that disalignment, then you create different manifestations of odaim, or so-called psychosis. Just like in the field of behavioral health, when they say a chronic condition of, psychiatric disorder, if it lasts for more than 2 weeks, it becomes chronic and so forth, and that person can be defined as, having paranoid personality disorder, or borderline personality disorder, or, psychosis, psychotic disorder, not otherwise specified, things like that. If it continues for a significant period, then it becomes defined under the rubric of some form of psychosis or personality disorder, whatever. But the key for us is we have divine function executed in the world, rooted and written into our akra, our spiritual head. So if we're disaligned from that, then that manifests disorder. If it's chronic, it becomes a form of odaim psychosis. The way to get back in alignment with that is ritual practice. That's when it becomes, very extreme, you need a Cherep or Cherepit, a form of priest or priestess. If it's minor, just like at home, physically, if you have a issue, you have congestion and things like that, your child, your mother can take care of that, your father can take care of that. Most things can be taken care of at home. But if you have something extreme, like a broken bone or a severe illness, and your parents can't take care of that, or if you're an adult and all the different remedies you've tried, you can't take care of it, then you have, or you need surgery or something, then you have to go to a specialist. And a priest or a priestess is a specialist. Now, but most things we can take care of, on our own. Most people, you don't get surgery every month or every year, or every 10 years and so forth. Most things that happen, you can take care of on your own, and we have the responsibility to do so. One of the major things that we deal with regard to that is what we call Susuw. One of the major ritual practices. We have different practices like Oshwie libation, and Samain Kom, which is communication with the ancestral spirits at the ancestral shrine and so forth. But we also have Susuw, which is quote unquote meditation. Now, let me show you something with regard to that. And we actually, next week, as a matter of fact, and we're going to show you that as well. This is the trailer that we utilize for our upcoming Susuw meditation course, but I want you to see how this ties into the notion of the Cherep, Cherepit. Click on our YouTube page, you will see this. This is Amenhotep, the son of Hapu.
Instructor certification. Susuw is
And we're talking about Susuw,
Akan term for meditation.
Akan term for meditation.
Susuw originated
Meditation
in our
instructor
ancestral
certification course. So we don't
Afuraka,
teaching
Afuraitkait,
meditation or Susuw
Africa,
that's 20
tens
years,
of thousands of years ago.
30.
This
This is
ancient
part
practice has
of
been utilized
those
to
who are
regulate physical, emotional,
involved in the
and
divinatory
mental balance
those
for
of us who
millennia
practice divination
in
and
varied
so forth,
expressions wherever our
often
people have
as
migrated
Odwirafo
in the world.
or Odun
Despite
Sinifo,
the benefits of
and so forth.
meditation,
Someone who's a priest or
and
priestess
health,
can practice divination. Everybody can practice some form of divination. You don't have to be a priest or priestess. Some people who are heads of certain spiritual communities practice divination on a communal level and so forth. We engage in the divinatory process and we do readings for people and so forth. Black people only, of course. But as part of that process, we also teach ritual practice. We've taught meditation, or what is called Susuw, ancient term that originates from our people. Meditation and yoga and so forth did not originate in India. We wrote a book called Ankh, the Origin of the Term Yoga, Karakasa, the Origin and Nature of the Chakra, proving that. But we've been practicing Susuw meditation for tens of thousands of years. Even if you go back here, let's just go back real quick. This is ancient Akan statuary. This is a Bilolo statue from the Akan and Ivory Coast and so forth. You see the female spirit, the ancestress, is seated on the traditional gua, so-called throne, in the Susuw or meditative posture. That's part of the meditative practice and so forth. Here you see Amenhotep, the son of Hapu, seated in the traditional meditative posture, the Susuw posture and so forth. So,
physical, emotional, and mental balance for millennia.
But that is the trailer when we're talking about our course. So we not only taught or teach Susuw meditation, but last year, after 20 years of teaching meditation, we started certifying people to become meditation instructors, Susuw instructors, which means you can, within that we have a 4-week online course. The next one, which is the final 4-week online session for the summer, begins next Tuesday. So if you would like to sign up for that, you can sign up. So after you take that 4-week course, you'll be certified as a Susuw instructor, and then you can use that credential, that certification, to go conduct meditation sessions on an introductory level at places of business. Certain corporations have their employees come out for workforce development, to enhance work productivity and so forth. They bring them out. They'll do, sessions, seminars. They have someone out to conduct mindfulness sessions, meditation sessions at the beginning of seminars. Schools do that. And in fact, let me stop this right here. This is the certification that you will receive after you complete your 4-week course. Schools have implemented that, elementary schools as well as high schools and colleges. They implement like 5 or 10 minutes of meditation at the beginning of the school day to calm the children down, enhance work productivity, discipline, focus, behavioral issues, and so forth. They've seen the benefits of that. Also at human services organizations, when people are at homeless shelters or women and families shelters, or people are assisted with, housing, employment, issues with regard to probation and different things, and they go to human services organizations for that. Some people who are going because they have addictions and they have group therapy sessions, and the therapist will bring someone out like once a week to sit with the individuals who have the regular group therapy session. They'll say, okay, today we're going to have this individual. They're going to take us like do a 5 or 10 or 15-minute meditation session so we can get more focused, discipline, and go in and, deal with our issues. So whether you're going to places of employment, schools, human services organizations, cultural events, lectures, and so forth, or you can host your own events, you can use your credential, and people typically pay $100, $200, $300 to bring you out to conduct a half an hour session where you introduce yourself, talk a little bit about what you're going to do, have a 10 or 15-minute meditation session, and like a 5 or 10-minute discussion afterwards. That's like a half an hour, and you get paid $100 or $200. Corporations typically pay more. So once you get certified in our 4-week course, you can take that certification and go to different businesses, organizations, and so forth, and engage in self-employment. So you can make money for yourself. Some people do it part-time. Some people make it a full-time endeavor. But we can impact our community, help heal our community, but also become self-employed at the same time. This is the certificate, and notice that once you complete, your name will be here, and your title would not just be Certified Meditation Instructor. Your title, as you can see, is Odwirafo. That is the title for instructor. Of course, you're a Susuw Cherepfo, meaning a meditation Cherepfo, a certified meditation Susuw Cherepfo instructor. But that goes all the way back to ancient Kamit. You're a Cherep or Cherepit. You're an instructor. You're on a certain level, on a mundane level, you're engaged in a priestly or priestessly function. When you're conducting people in meditation, you're guiding them, you're attending to them, you're assisting them, you're leading them so they can go within. And what are some of the benefits of Susuw meditation? I'll give you that real quick, and then we'll be done. We talk about how Susuw is a Akan term for meditation. It goes back to ancient Kamit and Kemet as well. We've been utilizing this practice for thousands of years to regulate physical, emotional, and mental balance for millennia. The scientific benefits of meditation for youth and adults have been well documented. So enhancing learning outcomes, regulating behavior, overcoming anxiety and depression, rebalancing hormones, lowering blood pressure, reducing stress, regulating weight loss, overcoming addictions, developing discipline, maintaining focus to overcome obstacles to short and long-term goals. So all of these benefits of meditation for the individual, but also, of course, when you become certified, you can give those benefits through teaching to those who you're serving so they can learn that practice from you, go back home and start regulating their own behavior, rebalancing their emotions, overcoming anxiety and depression, enhancing work productivity. That's a selling point when you go to a corporation, place of business, and you can show the scientific benefits of meditation for their employees. You go to schools, showing that it can enhance learning outcomes for youth and so forth. Also regulating behavior for youth, even in after-school programs. If you're interested in working with youth and so forth, you can do that from kindergarten all the way through 12th grade and into college as well. So there are a number of different benefits individually, but also when you become an Odwirafo, an instructor. So if you look on our page, you will see the flyer. You'll see the trailer that we just, show talking about the piece in detail. And we've done a couple of live streams here on the channel. So when you look on the channel, you'll see we're talking about Susuw. We go into detail. We've done an hour plus live, going into detail about what we discuss and what we teach in the course. So the next one starts August 19th. So if you want to register for this final summer session, it's a 4-week session, the 19th through September 2nd. So every Tuesday evening from August 19th to September 2nd at 8 p.m. Eastern. Each class is about 90 minutes. And then once, every recorded class, you will have access to the recording for the class, The books that are part of it are free downloads. There's a payment plan option if you would like to register, you make a down payment, and then you can pay over time and so forth. And, just reach out to us. Of course, it's open to Afuraka and Afuraitkait, African Black people exclusively. We teach our own people, and we go out and, we heal our people. If you do have any questions, of course, you can hit us up. Email us at kwesiakan@gmail.com or, on the website, Instagram, Odwirafo, Facebook, Odwirafo, as well as Kwesiakan. We're also on TikTok as Odwirafo. So if you have any questions, hit us up. If you'd like to sign up for the course, we have a few spots left open, so you can do that through our Susuw page. And look on the trailer on this YouTube channel, the Susuw trailer. We posted it yesterday, and you'll see the link for registration. Yerase, we thank you for tuning in, and Yebeshabio, we will meet again. What's up?
Susuw, Meditation Instructor Certification. Susuw is the ancient Akan term for meditation. Susuw originated in our ancestral culture of Afuraka, Afuraitkait, Africa, tens of thousands of years ago. This ancient practice has been utilized to regulate physical, emotional, and mental balance for millennia in varied expressions wherever our people have migrated in the world. The scientific benefits of meditation for youth and adults have been well documented, enhancing learning outcomes, regulating behavior, overcoming anxiety and depression, rebalancing hormones, lowering blood pressure, reducing stress, regulating weight loss, overcoming addictions, developing discipline, maintaining focus to overcome obstacles to short and long-term goals. Our meditation instructor certification is for individuals, independent contractors, educators, homeschoolers, human services professionals, behavioral health professionals, and others. As a certified instructor, you are qualified to contract with independent schools, charter schools, cultural organizations, corporate entities, women's and family shelters, community centers, colleges, and more to conduct meditation sessions on a daily, weekly, or periodic basis. Our instruction is rooted in our Nkwamua whole life wellness model.